Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Charlotte Stebbing-Mills, and today I'm joined by Magda Snowden, who is a powerhouse in transformational leadership coaching and a mentally agile leadership coach. With over 20 years of diverse experience spanning 4 countries and 2 continents within management, healthcare, education, leadership, and empowerment coaching, she's joining us today to share her wisdom and how it can help you, your teams, and your organizations thrive. So welcome to the show, Magda.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Pleasure being here, and thank you for the invite.
It is our pleasure. So let's dive straight in with you introducing a bit more about yourself. So give us some of the significant moments that have led you to do what you do today.
Okay, my background. So I always wanted to be a nurse. However, when I was in the secondary school, let's say finishing, I was very underconfident. I didn't think I could pass the exams going into nursing school. So I changed my mind. And instead, I studied Russian language and literature. So I hold masters in Russian. This is something that you probably don't know about me.
Don't think we've ever had anybody on the podcast with that either.
Then I did my training as a nurse as a mature student. So I found out that UK was recruiting for caregivers to work in nursing homes. So I just decided that, I'm gonna start my career from beginning. So I went to the UK, I worked in the nursing homes, then I got a job as a healthcare assistant in one of the big hospitals in the Southeast. And this hospital sponsored me to do my training. Obviously, that was my dream from childhood, to help people, to be with the ones who are the most vulnerable and so on. So I progressed quite quickly in my career to leadership roles. I moved to Dubai in the heat of pandemic. This is one of the significant moments here that you are asking me about. I was asked to facilitate a COVID-filled hospital, which I found it was definitely a turning point in my career. I started asking myself questions. How do I need to adapt my leadership style? What do I need to do to not only survive, but to thrive? And at that point, a conscious decision was made on my side that I want to thrive and I want to help other people to have the same experience. At that point, also, I took a decision to do my MBA in healthcare management when I was stuck in that COVID hotel, let's say. So let's utilize the time efficiently and do something that is meaningful. So I found out more about psychological safety, healthcare management, and then another huge transformational point came for me when I had a discussion with an HR director who happened to be a coach. And the way this person carried the conversation, the way she spoke to me, the way she empowered me to take action, I knew that something happened in that room that, I never experienced before. So it's thanks to Alexis that I did my coaching training. And again, when I saw the change in me, probably embracing the side of me that I did not saw before. So, to be the vulnerable leader, the one that says, I don't know, can you help me? Can I ask you a question? It's our mistake. If there are mistakes in organizations, we look at it from a systemic perspective. We don't just blame individuals. So I progressed with my coaching quite quickly again, senior certified coach, team transformation coach. And this is something that I really embrace when working with teams in organizations, because it produces change on a systemic level. And we all know systemic is not only the stakeholder inside, it's everyone that comes into contact with that organization. So for me, this is like the magical tool. And then adding the last piece of puzzle to this is I started receiving a lot of feedback that, Magda, whatever you are saying, whatever you are teaching and coaching is really powerful. Can you produce something so people can fall back on and they can, follow a simple step-by-step methodology or framework or whatever? And this is how I came up with a mentally agile leadership framework, which has 5 components. And again, here, yes, coaching is really powerful and can help in a lot of situations. but sometimes people might need training, they need mentoring. And in that framework, I also add the science component, which is really, really important for me. So this is the framework that I have developed.
We'll dive into that.
We need to understand why we behave the way we are behaving, why we react from an emotional point to someone who is disagreeing with us. For example, in the workplace, emotional intelligence skills, mental agility, human leadership, neuroplasticity. How can we change our behavior for the better? So this is how I empower leaders and teams and organizations, first with the science, then a set of customized assessments. Again, there is no one fixed solution that I use. This framework is very flexible and it meets people where they are. So everyone is going to benefit in a different way.
Nice. So that was quite the intro, and there's a lot in there. And I don't want us to just dive straight into the frameworks. I think it's really important to start to understand a bit more about some of the components that bring this into some semblance of like reality for people. So how do we go from being in the pandemic, making a conscious decision to thrive when there was a lot of people that really wasn't? And then how has your experience from healthcare led you to where you are? What are some of those shifts that had to happen, I think, for you as a professional, but and personally perhaps as well, that perhaps we don't hear about that could be useful for anybody else that is in a leadership position? Because people that are listening to this, they are typically they are leaders. They might have big teams, they might be leaders of self, but they really, really recognize that edge within themselves that makes them stand out and choose to thrive when other people survive. And that's not always the case for everyone. It's not always easy. So what are some of those components for you?
I think one of the biggest also turning points in my professional career was when I received the feedback from a senior leader. Okay, I was explaining that I'm not getting the results that I'm asking from one of the teams, and they keep saying that there is a delay, what is going on? And that person told me, like literally straight in my face, Magda, I'm sick and tired of you saying the same thing. And this gave me such awareness, obviously having already the coaching experience and the coaching mindset, I need to do something about it. What can I do? What small action I can take to change this reality? So that team or that person will start engaging with me, and we're gonna start having a productive discussions and productive ways of working in the future. So definitely, I looked at myself. Every leader has to look at themselves in this situation, what I can do differently. And I decided, let's go and speak to these people, see how I can understand them better. So number one is curiosity.
So is this specifically as part of your Agile framework now, number one? Yeah.
Curiosity is also there. So instead of me making assumptions that, again, they are not delivering what I'm asking them for, I can go and ask them, what is it that it is stopping them from giving me this piece of information? So it could be that very often it is that people don't understand what we want. And this is, I'm going to add another example in here. In healthcare, we are having huddles, safety huddles every day, in the morning, in the afternoon, at whichever time. And I used to chair some of the huddles, especially with the senior nurses in the hospital. And we used to come to these huddles and everyone will start moaning, oh my God, this doctor is doing this, we don't have capacity to deliver, this patient is complaining, da-da-da. And I like, let's stop here. Because at that point, I also was sick and tired of listening to the same conversations. We need to find solutions. So I said, what else can you do? And people started saying, oh, we told them. Okay, you told them it's not working. What else can you do? We send email. Okay, email and telling is not working. What else can you do? And then there is a silence. There is overpowering silence. And people start thinking, yes, we need to come out from our comfort zone. So what can we do? Can we go to that person, sit with them and say, what is it that we need to do, the both of us, to move this situation forward? And very often it is a very simple solution. I'm not giving, like, I know mentally agile leadership framework sounds monstrous concept, but when you are able to break it down into micro components, then you can start taking these micro actions that are gonna add to a huge positive change.
Yeah, I like that. And I think what's great is that there was already something in play. The huddle was already in play, but you saw that actually, you know what, those huddles, as much as they're there and the idea of a huddle is fantastic and can make a true difference, but if they're not being executed with the skill sets that are required to create the optimization of those situations, we're not going to be able to move forward. And I think it's definitely true for healthcare, but it's definitely true for other organizations that when we are super stressed, our natural way of thinking often is to go to this default primal thinking. I can't necessarily do something about it. So we either fight it, and most people get tired very quickly. So the tiredness stresses them out. So they stop fighting it and they embody what we call learned helplessness. And that's where we can get into those states, like you mentioned, of, but I've told them already, I've sent them an email, what else can I do? You know, it's that mentality that I think sometimes we can almost like fail at that first hurdle because we don't recognize that people just operated from their default, from like autopilot, and giving them the space, the fact that you paused and you gave them the space and just asked them slightly different questions, and knowing that they was okay to then share the answers to those questions with you would start to alleviate those stresses, because they're being heard now, and actually they are actually being able to express other ideas, and that in itself starts to calm our nervous system. It brings us back into a state of resourcefulness. And I think sometimes like we just forget, and we want to go in, not even sometimes, yes, companies want to go in with the big framework like you said and all of the training in the world, and I think we're coming around to the idea that small things make a big difference and their compounding effect. But even those small things do not really work if we are not taking into consideration the state of which the person or the people that we are working with are showing up in the first place. So I know we haven't even got into the framework yet, but I think it's really interesting that if that's the only thing somebody takes away from this conversation, the fact that you just pause to ask the question and invoke some curiosity, it can have such a knock-on effect on somebody's nervous system, on their actual state and their state of mind. I think is very, very powerful. So what have you seen in approaching different organizations or different teams with your framework? So that was clearly a great starting point for you in opening the conversation. How does that lead into the principles of this Agile framework that you have?
It's a very interesting question. So, I started using team transformation coaching and the mentally agile leadership framework just over a couple of years ago, when I used to work in a permanent role in a private hospital in Kuwait. I was in a senior nursing leadership role. And I was quite lucky that this organization embraced wellness. Wellness was, embedded in the balance scorecard. There were measurable components. So they were actually looking for a different way how to empower their people so they can deliver a better service for the patients. And also, I want to say that I really like, you've mentioned already the autopilot, right? Why do we behave in the same way? Yes, autopilot is there, but not to make people guilty that they are stuck in these sometimes negative patterns. These are all normal human behaviors. And this is what I also incorporate in this mentally agile leadership framework, that this, because we are human and the way we are behaving, they're all normal humans, emotions, reactions, autopilot, being stressed, reacting, and all this. So whilst we understand that this is normal, then we can change our situations. And again, going back to that huddle situation, small change, even asking question different way and getting a different answer is gonna change the trajectory totally. You're gonna go in a different direction. Then imagine that you're gonna use the same or similar approach in other meetings, because the biggest waste of time and resources in organizations are meetings.
Yeah.
People come to meeting after meeting, and I was actually the same person because I learned on my own examples. In the very same hospital, when I first started, I had days with 6 hours back to back. I don't have time to go for break. I don't have time to go to the bathroom. And then I'm getting angry at my secretary. Why did you schedule me in this way? And actually, it was me that scheduled myself or allowed her to do it. So another breakthrough came. I attended obviously some trainings because I didn't learn all this myself. I learned this by trainings, mentoring, coaching, and then by working with others and gathering their feedbacks. So another very powerful intervention that I did on a personal level, and then I coached others, is to implement processing breaks in the work schedule.
Nice.
I need time to myself, close the door. I know we say open door policy, but you cannot have open door for 8 hours, 10 hours, or 12 when you are at work. Have that processing break, sit down with yourself, do whatever you wish, breathing meditations, candles. I used to do candles. My day used to start with candles, meditation, then gratitude huddle, and then business.
Yep.
It's never business first, it's first the human, and then it's the business.
I love that. I love that so much. The processing time, I think, is something that is becoming lost in the world in general, not necessarily just in the workplace. And I think it's hugely powerful. A practice that I have is no meetings Mondays and no meetings before 12 o'clock. And that's a standard rule because that is my processing time. And I found I had a very profound shift when I started to do that in how I felt about myself, my business, my ability to be able to pull different nuances into the work that I was doing, to be able to really be creative again, to be really resourceful and present in different moments and different meetings and different settings. And it's an absolute game changer. And I think we've seen that time and time again in different organizations. And there's a reason why that processing time is so important, is because our brain literally needs the rest, right? We only have a certain amount of energy. It needs that time to be free from stimulation to actually integrate. Otherwise, we're just running from the next thing to the next thing. And guess what that does to our nervous system? We get stressed out again. Exactly. And then we wonder why we're chasing our tail and we don't know which day of the week it is. And we're just, on that go, and not pausing to take those times. So that's a very, very great point. I don't think anybody's mentioned that on the podcast actually yet so far.
Actually, before we move forward, I know there is going to be many people sitting on this call because I received a lot of let's say, hang on, Magda, don't tell people to put processing time and pull them off the floor. This is not a rigid formula. I'm not saying you do it at the same time. I am doing it. And you need to really embrace the mindset of trying, failing, and then you're going to reach your solution. But please do not just say no at the beginning because you're not going to get anywhere. Everyone in their work life has 10, 15 minutes. I'm not saying it has to be the full hour.
Exactly.
So be flexible, look at the solution and see how you can use it in your own personal example.
And also, I think communicating as well, that this is something we're actually doing. I was working with a team here in Abu Dhabi, and the CEO said, oh, it's great because where we're located, we can go outside and we can go for a walk. And he could say, I'm always out there having a walk in between meetings and things. I'm like, great. I'm like, do your team know that they're even allowed to do that? And he was like, yeah, of course they do. I was like, let's ask the team, shall we? So we spoke to the team and they was like, no, we didn't know we was even allowed to leave our desk unless it was the lunch break, So it's this assumption sometimes that we have as leaders that people know this stuff and that people can have the freedom and the autonomy to bring these things into the business. And I think it is important to have that open dialogue because, like you said as well, everyone's different. No meetings Mondays might be a terrible idea for someone, right? But for me it works. So like you said, there'll be different people and different team members that process things differently as well. They might need a space where they can go and process. Other people might process through conversation. They might actually need that one-to-one with their line manager or a buddy in the office. But unless the conversation is had and the communication is behind it, it's going to be very, very tricky to implement that in a way that makes sense for the team and for the business.
Involve your people. People support what they help create. And this is the golden rule. You cannot get wrong in there. First, you need to have a degree of psychological safety. So your people are going to really tell you what they think. And then if you are in this good position that your people will tell you what they want and how things are going to work, then I think it's a beginning of a beautiful journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important that you say that, because like the buying process typically, and this is obviously a generalization, and particularly in this region that I've seen as well, is that there's an idea that we're going to do something about well-being or wellness, and we're going to just spread the word. Who do you know that's done this thing? Was it good? Great. Let's do the same thing here. Right. And then it's plug and play. Let's tell everybody we're doing it. Wow, let's give ourselves a pat on the back because we've invested in this thing. And actually then they're unhappy a little while later because people didn't engage with it. Most of the people didn't know about it. They definitely weren't excited about it for the very reason that you just said, because they were not involved in the process. And I think it's so incredibly important, because we are living in a world now where personalization matters. You know, when you go shopping, like online, you'll see all of your favorite things popping up in front. That's not by accident. We're becoming conditioned and accustomed to this way of being. So if it's not present, well, now this feels disconnected and it feels alien. So that of course they're not going to get buy-in with it. So I think that's a really great point that you've added there as well. I love that, Magda.
I think, yes, you added the bit of science, the external influence and the external noise. When we are in the autopilot reality, we just keep doing what we've been doing. We have always done it this way. But for us to be able to detach and see a different point and a different reality, perhaps embrace a different concept, we need a moment of stillness. So even having this processing time in my working day, I could find solutions to issues that I was stuck with.
Yep.
And during this processing, actually, times I found, why don't I go and ask someone who is from outside my department? Because they might have the zoom in view, like what needs to be done. I need to zoom out so I can see actually what is the issue and what we need to do.
Yeah. And perspective is very important, because we only know what we know, right? So if we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to know more, to learn, or to understand, or even consider, doesn't mean you have to then follow what the insight is that somebody shared, but at least now you're open to that idea. And when we're open, change can happen. And I believe that wholeheartedly. So Magda, you when we were speaking earlier, and you was obviously giving your introduction, you listed out the key components of your mental agility leadership. So I'd love for you to. We're not going to go into every single one of them in depth. I want you to pick the one that you think is most overlooked within organizations and perhaps within leadership, that doesn't get talked about enough. And I'm sure all of them don't get talked about enough, probably from your perspective, but which one do you think our listeners really need to hear about? And let's dive into that.
Do you know, in the team transformation coaching, of course, coaching is mostly about asking questions. But when you do the systemic intervention, it is a combination of coaching, training, mentoring. So at that point, when I started empowering people with the science, and we had full sessions on, for example, the use of positive future-oriented language. And then I give you a beautiful example for organizations. I have another coaster in here that I use during training, fully optimized instead of busy. Okay, I start a conversation. How many times did you say this week that you were busy? Everyone can relate, okay? Nurses, doctors, everyone in the hospital. So can you tell me what is the definition of busy? Then people go silent, they don't know. Look in the dictionary, there isn't actually a definition that you can easily understand. So the science component comes in here when I explain that our brain needs structure and it needs clarity. If you keep repeating day in and day out, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, you're adding more stress on yourself. What can we say instead of I'm busy? What can we say? Okay, silence again, but okay, let's come out from our comfort zone. I have a high load of patients. No problem, we can start there. Okay, so are you saying that you have too many patients for your capacity? You need help? Yes, okay, what do you need to do? I need to escalate to my senior to get another person on board or redelegate the tasks. Simple, simple. What else can you say? I need to prioritize. So instead of busy, I am fully optimized. And if I am fully optimized, I am at capacity, I need to do priorities. So all this structured and future-oriented language, your brain is gonna accept in a much easier way. When we have priorities, 1, 2, 3, we're gonna start doing the task so we can complete the priorities. If our list is too long, we will ask for help, we will delegate, we will escalate. So again, it's not just one conversation. People need to go and try it. We need to make an agreement with leaders and the team that this is how we're gonna be communicating with each other. So we made agreement, for example, with the same senior nursing team that was attending the huddles. We do not use busy. It was very difficult, of course. I say, how are you doing? Oh, you are what? Okay, ma'am, I'm fully optimized. And I was like, okay, tell me more, give me the details. Then you find out, people start saying, okay, I have so many patients, I don't know what to do, I'm struggling, we are behind. Then they've learned that, they need to communicate if they need help.
Yeah.
And again, psychological safety, the trust. It took me a few months, of course, with a new team to build the trust. But once you have the trust and people will tell you, oh, I'm swamped, I don't know what to do, can you please help me? Then really you can start moving the situations in a better way. You reduce the stress for yourself and for your team. You improve the outcomes. Of course, your patients are gonna sense and they're gonna see that the staff on the floor is stressed, they cannot go for break and all these things are happening. So really small solutions. When people understand the science, again, I know all the feedback that I received, and my nurses used to tell me that the emotional intelligence is one of the most powerful learnings that they received in their nursing careers. Some of these senior leaders were 20 years in organization, in senior positions, and they will come and say that now I am able to deal with the challenging situations in a way that first, I don't stress myself, and then I don't give this stress to my team. So then imagine also the team doesn't stress the patients, and the whole situation just changes from something really tense to something that, okay, what can we do to make it work?
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody listening to that can resonate to the I'm busy piece for sure. And I caught myself on that probably must have been about 18 months ago now. And I had that same kind of conversation in my own mind of, well, what would I say instead if I wasn't busy? And I moved into full. Like life is very full right now, but I didn't have like the optimized bit wasn't necessarily with it, but naturally I'm a little bit of an optimizer bunny, and I like to try and I'll take whatever I can possibly do, whatever biohacks to really optimize different things anyway. So I think I've been lucky in the sense that might have been influencing it, because it really helped just changing the word to fully and full. Life is full, and I'm enjoying life being very full right now, because we think as well fulfilled comes from that same origin as well. Very interesting. So that was a great example. Are there other things within the emotional intelligence piece, aside from the shifting of language and moving into that positive future language? What other components are there within emotional intelligence that have been really, really powerful that our listeners could perhaps take away?
Again, one of the biggest impacting, but starting with a very small action, is this: pause, think, talk. And I say majority of conflicts in the workplace or in life starts when we skip the first two and we just talk.
Yeah.
So there is someone angry standing in front of us, let's say a customer, they are complaining. I'm gonna get stressed and I'm gonna start getting defensive. Oh, my colleague did this, da 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 da. Then we have a situation without a solution. We are stuck in the angry bubble. We cannot see anything else. And majority of the time, and I've seen this in hospitals, and it's not only nurses and doctors, it's the customer service, it's the insurance, it's the IT people, whoever, is like, I'm being attacked, so I need to attack. So I will just continue talking. I don't give myself time to think, where is this person coming from? Can I ask a question to get a clarification instead of assuming that I'm being attacked or I'm being blamed for something? So this is really, really powerful. And when I teach and train this, I give people these coasters, put it in your office. You know, when you have a drink, a glass of water or a cup of tea, just look at it. Condition your brain every single day. This is very simple, yet so powerful. And again, whomever I trained and coached before, they can still repeat back to you, you know, the wisdom in it, and they can explain it in their own unique way. So it means it is working. And again, everyone has a different background, different story, you know, different professional journey. But this is like the universal rule, like the golden wisdom. You cannot go wrong.
And we all have emotions, right? We all do, and they all work in the same way, right? We all get the same chemical mix with different emotions that drop into our system, maybe for different triggers and different reasons, and that's okay because we are unique in our journeys. But the like you said, it's a universal truth that when we pause and we think, what comes out of our mouth is usually better. And there's been a lot of studies done around that, because what I love about your framework is it's interesting that it's called mental agility framework, because sometimes people think mental mindset, right? Or mental and mental health. But what I like is the agility piece in particular, because you include our emotional state and our physical state within that. Because when we pause, it is affecting our physical state. If we all just take a moment now and just take a breath and literally just pause and breathe out, immediately our nervous system's calming down, our mind is calming down. Now we can actually think. So you're including all of it, which is actually very holistic. And I think that is the way that we move forwards as humanity, to be honest, not just organizational well-being. If we can really nail that pause. What are the biggest maybe pieces of resistance that you find? There might be people that listen to this that think, but I don't have time to pause. I don't have time to think. What do you say to them?
You know, the biggest obstacles always is the human, because and there is science again in why we resist change, why we say it cannot be done. So when we sit in this, I call it scarcity mindset, okay? When I don't have enough staff, I don't have enough resources, we don't have enough money, we are stuck in our own reality. And again, for us to become unstuck and look at the different options or consider different concepts, we need to be in a certain mindset. And again, it's not only about the mindset. I really want to highlight here, and you already said it, it is holistic. And the coaching model I was trained on is transformational holistic model, which means mind, body, spirit. It's not only shifting your mindset. If you're experiencing, let's say, stress, burnout, it is showing in your body, right? So how can you shift your mindset if you are struggling on a physical or a spiritual level? Yep. So I think all this is all connected together. And again, it's an easy flow, easy to understand. And I believe when people understand the science behind it, it's much better for them to take a conscious decision and try to implement small actions. They can produce really big changes.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of the science that you think people need to know about that maybe they don't, that isn't as commonly spoke about, perhaps?
See, I was actually quite naive. I thought everyone knows about emotional intelligence. Yes, everyone heard about it, but when I get into the depth of this concept during coaching and mentoring, is actually no. People know the headlines, but they don't understand what is emotional regulations. That emotions are chemical reactions in our body. That's why when you do the posting talk, this chemical reaction is going to reduce its intensity. So the 6-second pause, there is another one of my golden rules, is shut up for 6 seconds and you're going to produce a much better answer. Or do you really need to answer? Sometimes we are forced that if there is a question asked, we start committing, like, and this actually is applicable both when we are angry. Yes, the answer is going to be probably not what we want, but also when we are excited. So let's say you just received a promotion or a pay rise or even something on a personal level. Then your boss is going to ask you, can you do this project and another project? And you're going to say yes in a heat of the moment because you are happy about something else. And then 1 hour later, you are stressing like anything, like, how can I do this? I'm at capacity. Why did I commit to this? Da, da, da. It's like, all these small solutions that we can implement to stop putting ourselves into trouble and stop creating stress for ourselves. Because I think also here we need to mention it's not the employer, it's not the organization, it's not your boss.
Yep.
Very often who is adding the stress is also you with your own individual actions.
Yeah, exactly. I say on this podcast all the time, like it's a shared responsibility. We have to remember that we are individuals that come together within an organization. So we cannot disregard the individual, and we cannot disregard the collaboration of individuals coming together either. We have to look at both. And there's a lot of science to support that emotions are contagious as well, right?
Yes.
So emotional contagion is very, very real. Like we can literally feel the same emotions as somebody else, or not even, yes, feel the same emotion, but at least be affected by them. And that makes a world of difference when you're in a setting where you're surrounded by other people who are stressed, that don't know how to regulate their own emotions, and the impact that has on somebody else. How do you navigate that with teams that you work with? Because like you said, there'll be probably some people in the room. I'd be curious to maybe know how many in a room of 30, how many actually really understand emotional intelligence versus how many actually practice it. How do you help teams to navigate it so the team becomes emotionally intelligent and not just a few of the people?
Very, very interesting. And again, I just add another piece of science again, because you say emotions are contagious. Cortisol is excreted through the skin. So imagine you are in a room with someone who is permanently stressed. You're gonna pick up this stress hormone. Okay. How I work actually with teams during the transformation intervention, we always start with setting or agreeing on a charter. So set of rules, what we're gonna be doing and what we're not gonna be doing. It gives, I think, this basis so people feel safe to express themselves, be non-judgmental, adopt the curious mindset, pause before they talk, consider that other people's opinion, especially which are very different, are not attack on them, it's just something that they see from their reality. And again, in coaching is very much what is emerging. So what I sense energetically in the room, what I see, what people are telling me, because it's not me, I'm not coming and telling today we're going to learn about emotional intelligence. Of course, I ask coaching questions in a way that I'm going to get answers that are going to lead us in the direction where we need to go. So it's all involve the people, see what is emerging, and make sure that the energy in the room is matching to what also the body language is showing in there, and the results. Then they start discovering. When you pass this initial state, they start discovering the power of collective intelligence. This is what happens in team transformation. So they're discovering that it's not only them, because we start with me, then we progress to we, and there is a it. You coach in the end the collective intelligence, and it's a separate entity that is out there. That's why this is so powerful. And I have examples of people in the team that were very self-unaware. They were new to organizations, causing a lot of problems. They wanted to enforce or reinforce something that worked for them somewhere else. They came, they upset everyone, there were complaints, they wanted to leave, still on the resignation period. And then when we started the coaching conversations, like, what is it that you can do on your level? Still, there is resistance. It's very difficult to look at ourselves and admit that actually it's us that is very often causing the problem, not the other person.
Yeah.
And I have an example of a very powerful intervention that I use several times. I ask people to look in the mirror. Then when they tell me, I said, okay, they said that nothing else can be done and it's this person who is upsetting them. I said, now stand in front of the mirror and say the same.
Yeah.
And very often I had situations people are crying because this is the realization that I'm not telling the truth and I'm not telling the truth to myself.
Yeah. And that's where self-leadership comes into play, doesn't it? And I think without those mirrors, it's very, very hard to lead a team, because if we're not willing to see something within ourselves, it's going to be very hard to lead a team efficiently, at least. I wonder if you could shed light on how does somebody that's listening to this podcast, how do they start to be really honest with themselves? If this is something they're listening and they're like, oh, that sounds like me, I think maybe I need to look in the mirror. Like, how do they start with something like that? Because we're on the other side of the fence a little bit, and we know, and we've kind of had our own breakthroughs with looking in the mirror. It can be hard for somebody that hasn't looked in their mirror yet to sort of really lean into it. What would you say to them?
If you feel that there is something to improve on the leadership front or self-awareness, professional growth, in this framework, I include a lot of assessments. So there are emotional intelligence assessments. Feedback is extremely important. And it's not only the yearly feedback that you are getting from your line manager, it's every feedback that you can get. Get into a habit to ask for feedback from your people, even from your juniors. And this is what I implemented as my leadership practice. Every one-to-one coaching sessions, at the end, I will ask, can you give me feedback for myself? Again, this requires a high level of psychological safety and trust between us.
Yeah.
So they will tell me, I'm the director of nursing, people are going to tell me, maybe you should do this and maybe you should do that. But imagine I receive feedback like, when you come on your rounds, can you try to address people by the first name instead of just starting the conversation? And for me, I had like 300 nurses under me.
Oh, wow.
And when the back is turned the other way around, sometimes it's difficult to remember the name. So I was very conscious when I received this feedback, but it made such a difference. And then later on, one of the male charge nurses told me, when you came to my unit and you said, Michael, this and that, I was like, oh my God, you've addressed me by my first name in front of everyone. For people, this kind of personal recognition from their leader is extremely meaningful. So this is a very small thing, but for me, feedback is magical. You need to get comfortable with receiving feedback from right sources, people who know how to give feedback, something that is personalized and something that is tailored to the situation.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, right? Even though it might feel initially a bit uncomfortable to receive that feedback as well, like the Michael in your example there, it's like sharing his name and receiving feedback, you're being seen, you're being heard, you're being understood. And those are, again, universal fundamentals of being a human being that we all need. And that makes us feel like we're more resourceful, more capable. And that, again, has a positive knock-on effects when it comes to things like productivity, creativity, engagement in the workplace, and ultimately the business outcomes. I know you're very passionate and very, very focused on how your mental agility leadership framework can not only impact the people, but the actual business objectives as well. Can you share some examples and how you've seen some of the core KPIs of a business improve off the back of the type of work that you do?
I think one of my favorite is because I was actually involved hands-on in the patient satisfaction, improvement projects. And we not only, majority of organizations see patients complain as something, oh my God, patient has complained, we have done something wrong. So when you start coaching people and we gather, let's say on a project, we gather a project team to improve the KPI in patient satisfaction, in experience, whatever we are working on, and people start to see a different value first in the complaints, because it is something for us to improve on. We cannot improve if we don't get feedback. Yes, some of the complaints are not valid, but majority of it is. Yep. And again, I introduced something that was not very popular at the beginning. I used to bring the biggest complainer to sit with us on the table, first explain us the story, connect as human to human, and then let's walk your journey and show us what else we can do better. So the marketing for any business is the marketing of by word, right? When the patients are gonna come outside and they used to say, in no other hospital, private hospital in Kuwait, the senior leaders come on the floor and ask them, how are you doing? What can we do better? You cannot even think that they're gonna bring the biggest complainer, even the one who posted something on social media, back to the hospital and ask, how can we rectify this? I mean, this has tremendous, positive impact on the business if you can show also your customer that you are doing something to improve their experience, and it is real. It's not only to tick the boxes, because we all know KPIs, 100% compliance or 0% incidences. It doesn't work this way.
Yep, exactly. And this is how you navigate the issues that come up that make the biggest difference, right? Again, it's bringing the humanness back into the equation, isn't it? I think as well. I think there's definitely some correlation between how perhaps we're being led down a very digitalized world, and we have perhaps been in old traditional management paradigms where it's managing from the office or managing from above, but to go and walk the floor, to be seen, to be heard, to see others and to acknowledge them and to learn and grow together. I think that is the new ways of working to moving forwards. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Actually, they are not new ways of working, because even looking back at my NHS days, there were practices called management by wandering around. So the senior leader is seen in the hospital. Even the CEO of my hospital that I used to work, he was touring the hospital from 7 o'clock in the morning. We had senior matrons, coming and helping with bed making, in situations when we had crisis or even without the crisis. And these are some of the practices that I advise leaders to do. And I know it is not comfortable for majority of people just to go and start a conversation. Because I remember, I will keep citing this private hospital in Kuwait, when initially the doctors were looking at me and asking, is there a complaint? Why are you here? And I'm here just to say hello, how are you? So again, it took few weeks for them just to have a normal conversation. Okay, I don't just come when we have a complaint, oh, you've done something wrong. Same with all the other stuff. So yeah, I think leading by example is one of the things. Coming out from your comfort zone, yes, this is not a comfortable practice. And I understand in businesses sometimes I'm sure people on this call are gonna say, I don't have time to go around and do all these things. I'm not saying you have to do it every day. Same like with the processing breaks, be flexible, find your own way. You can do your round in the morning, you can connect on Fridays. I don't mind what you do, but try to adopt a different type of practice and see the benefit that you're gonna get.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting because it's the small things again, isn't it, that can make the big difference. And often organizations think they have to like invest so much money into things. Like everything, if somebody goes away from this episode today and implements all of the things that you've spoken about, like they will see drastic shifts just from those small things, I truly believe. Yes, there's obviously more elements to your framework for sure, and we'll let our listeners obviously know where they can come and find out more about that throughout. In fact, you can tell them now, where can our listeners come and learn more about the framework?
So yeah, you can find me on my website. So it's magdasnowden.com. Actually, yesterday only, I have introduced a LinkedIn group, which is called Mentally Agile Leadership. So it is something that I will be speaking about a lot. I want to involve other people in this kind of conversation. Obviously, the mental health conversation is also opening up here in the UAE, and I'm connecting with a lot of leaders and other professionals that want to collaborate on this front. I have a LinkedIn Live discussion on thriving together. It is aimed at healthcare environment, but a lot of these lessons are applicable to organizations, doesn't matter the industry. So these are on every Tuesday at 6 p.m. UAE time. And also I have an Instagram and other sources, but I think LinkedIn is my main platform.
Amazing. And I would highly recommend anybody listening comes and follows your works. You're doing some fantastic work. So you do a lot of talks and things like that. And I know you did a talk, didn't you, at COP28 around connecting personal well-being to a healthier planet. Can you just, before we wrap up, share like your experience and your insights from that? Because I think we're all trying to do more and meet CSRs and to really try and broaden our own perspective of how all of this links together. So I'd love to know your insights, if that's okay.
Yeah, COP28 was really like a last minute invite. And because I connected with someone who is also in this space, coaching, healthcare and all that. And I come up with this title like literally within few minutes, from personal well-being to a healthier planet. So COP28 is all about sustainability, giving back to the community, protecting the environment, reducing the waste, and so on. So how I made it easy for people to understand is, how do you get from A to Z? You need a tool, and with this tool, you're going to develop a set of skills. So as a tool, I use coaching, and with coaching, we develop mental agility skills, and then you arrive at the bigger goal at the end. So I did a series of talks plus well-being coaching sessions when I took people into a Zen room at the back and we were discussing. And again, I found out that emotional intelligence and mental agility is not something that people really have in-depth knowledge on. Yep. And there was a particular gentleman in there who asked me, when I go home, can I share this with my son? And I'm like, please do. And this is how we create the positive change in the environment. The father is learning, the principles of how to reduce stress, how to be a better father for his son and even for people around. And then he's going to have this discussion with his son. I was like, wow, this is my mission. Yep. This is where I get my fulfillment.
Exactly. I love that so much. Like, our mission at the Wellness Theory is that when we're healthy and well, we can be a force for good in the world. So it's on us to really make a difference and help people to be well in different ways when it comes to stress, burnout, and overwhelm. And ultimately, when we see our clients and the organizations we work with become happy, healthy, high performers, naturally they end up doing more and wanting more and creating more and adding more value to everything around them and everybody around them. And it's something that I think you can't unsee it. Once you've seen the amazing things that can come when we do start to lean into these deeper understandings, because I think particularly the mental agility and the emotional intelligence, and mental health specifically, when we start to see how that links in, like you said earlier, cortisol is literally coming out of our skin. It's coming out of our pores. It's physically in our environment. So how can it not affect it? So when we start to really understand this, we start to lose our sense of separation, and we can start to look at not only ourselves holistically, but we can look at our business holistically. We can look at a society more holistically. And that is like, I think you said at the very beginning, that's where systemic change really happens and lasting change happens. And I think it's the future, inshallah.
Yeah. So anyone who wants to maybe take a test in the mental agility, I have a scorecard on my website. You can just take a free test. You can get an instant score and maybe a compass to see how you can progress from there, what you can do next. This is something I can use.
Perfect. And no doubt off the back of doing that test, they'll be able to understand the other principles of mental agility framework that we haven't obviously touched upon today, because we only really dove into one of those areas. So Magda, thank you so much for being here. Before you go, what is one last piece of wisdom or practical tip that you think our listeners need to know about that perhaps we haven't touched upon or you want to reinforce?
The last tip? Okay, I have one more coaster that I haven't used. So I say here, consciousness is no longer optional. So you need to be conscious to make good decisions.
Yep.
The minute you run on the autopilot, you might, take decisions that are not really aligned with what you are looking for, with your values, with your mission. So please slow down, breathe, be conscious.
Look in the mirror. It's the only way. I love that. Amazing. Magda, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your insights, and your wisdom today. I have no doubt our listeners will come and find you. All of the links to everything that you have mentioned today will be in the show notes as well, to make it easy for our listeners to come and find you. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
If you enjoyed this episode and you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.
Then share it with a friend who you think might benefit.
Spread the word. That's how we're going to impact the world, by helping each other.
We appreciate you so much, and as always, unconditional love and wellness to you.